Now when we talk about types of inflation, so there are 5 types of inflation. That is number 1, creeping inflation. Creeping inflation. Number 2, trotting inflation. Trotting inflation. Number 3, galloping inflation. Galloping inflation. Number 4, runaway inflation. Runaway inflation and hyperinflation. Now, no doubt from this topic, okay, from this topic, you can say question will not come directly, okay, don't worry about it, okay, but indirectly question will come, okay. So ultimately I will tell you from where question will come, okay. So if you remember this thing, it's fine. If you don't remember, then also it's fine, okay. Now creeping inflation, what it says that if inflation is in the range of, you can say 2 to 4%, that is creeping inflation, and this creeping inflation is required or desired by every economy. So we have seen that this act as an incentive for the economy, or you can say it is the case of good inflation, incentive for an economy. So we have seen how it is an incentive for the economy. So we have seen here, okay. So it acts as an incentive for the economy, okay. Now when we talk about trotting, so trotting is a situation where you will see that inflation is in the range of 6 to 10%, okay. So don't need to mug up the ranges, so you have to just remember that this is the, you can say, exact number, because when you Google it, you will find different numbers, okay. So ultimately different means little bit it vary, like somewhere it is written like 4 to 10%, sometimes 6 to 12%. So don't worry about it, just remember certain idea that trotting inflation is there, okay. Now trotting inflation is there, okay. Now this is a concern, or you can say this is a case of bad inflation, okay. This is a case of bad inflation. Now ultimately galloping inflation, that is 11 to 14%. If your prices of the product are increasing per annum, so these are per annum or per year, you can say, okay. Now runaway inflation is that the prices are increasing in the range of 15 to 18% per year, okay. And now hyperinflation, in hyperinflation prices are increasing more than 20% per month. So ultimately these all are the case of bad inflation, okay. These all are the case of bad inflation, okay. So this is what you have to understood first, okay. These all are the case of bad inflation. Clear? So this is what you have to remember, that these all are the case of bad inflation, okay. Now again I am saying you that these numbers are not important to remember, okay, or these you can say names also, but whatever I am going to cover now, okay, that is important, okay. So like what analysis or inference we have from this type of inflation, so that is important, okay. So if you see, number 1, what I will say you that when we talk about you can say inflation, so no doubt creeping inflation is desired, okay. So as I told you, why? Because it acts as a incentive. Number 2, okay, so you can say creeping inflation is desired. Creeping inflation is desired. Number 2, now inflation, if suppose our economy is not able to maintain creeping inflation, or you can say not able to manage creeping inflation, then inflation will increase in certain pattern. Means if suppose we are not able to manage creeping inflation, okay, if we are not able to manage creeping inflation, then you will see, then there will be trotting inflation. So after creeping inflation there will be a trotting inflation, so pattern will be like this, Okay, then there will be galloping inflation. Then there will be galloping inflation. Then after galloping inflation, there will be runaway inflation. And finally, there will be hyperinflation. There will be hyperinflation. So ultimately, inflation follows a path. Okay, inflation follows a path. Okay, that is why in some books it is written as persistent or gradual rise in the prices of inflation. Okay, so ultimately, if you can say economy fails to, if economy fails to manage creeping inflation, if economy fails to manage creeping inflation, comma, then this path will be followed. Then this path will be followed. Now here you can understand this way. Okay, so ultimately this path will be followed. Okay, now it does not mean that it is unidirectional, it is bidirectional. So if you take action at any of the levels, suppose your economy reaches to galloping inflation and you take the action, so you can reverse this path also. Okay, you can reverse this path also. Okay, so this, you can say this flow chart is bidirectional. Okay, so if you take the action, so you can reverse this path also. Okay, so again you can come to creeping inflation. Okay, again you can come to creeping inflation. So we can say that this is bidirectional in nature. Bidirectional in nature. Okay, bidirectional in nature. Clear? So this is what you have to understood. Okay, I hope this is clear to you. Please tell me. I hope this is clear to you. Okay, now moving further. Now if you see, this trotting and galloping inflation is also regarded as moderate inflation or moderate level of inflation. Moderate level of inflation. Okay, so this trotting and galloping inflation is also called as moderate level of inflation. Clear? Now this runaway and hyperinflation is called as high level of inflation or high inflation. High level of inflation or high inflation. Clear? So ultimately this is called as moderate level of inflation, that is trotting and galloping. Runaway and hyper is called as high level of inflation. Clear? So this is what you have to remember, that this is high level of inflation and this is moderate level of inflation. Now why I am telling you this thing? Because if suppose you take a step at, or you can say government take a step at this level, that is moderate level of inflation. So no doubt at moderate level of inflation, whatever efforts you require, that will be less than whatever efforts you require at high level. So you can say these inflation, you can say path is just like a cancer stages. So you can say this is cancer stage 1, this is cancer stage 2. So ultimately if you detect cancer at this stage, so ultimately it is very difficult to reverse it. Okay, so efforts are required. So I am not saying it cannot be possible, but again difficulty level will increase. But if you identify here, okay, that is at stage 1, then you can easily, or you can say with less efforts you can reverse the trend. Okay, so ultimately you can say at moderate level efforts required are less than high level of inflation. Okay, so you can say that at moderate level, okay, at moderate level we can say that less efforts are required or less efforts are required than high level. Okay, high level. Clear? So this is what you have to understand. Okay, this is what you have to understood. Is it clear to everyone? Please tell me. Okay, I hope you are noting down these things. Please tell me, is it clear? Although many students have this misconception that this chapter is very easy, but ultimately there are so many concepts. So I will make you learn in this today's session. So you can see, if you are reading newspaper regularly, okay, okay. So if you are reading newspaper regularly, so you know that the Pakistan economy and Sri Lanka economy reaches to high level of inflation, okay, reaches to high level of inflation, and it was very difficult to reverse it, okay, and it was very difficult to reverse it, clear. So it has reaches to high level of inflation, okay, and it was very difficult to reverse it. So this is what you have to understood, okay. Now moving further, now if suppose economy fails to maintain high level, or you can say fails to reverse the high level of inflation towards creeping, then after high level of inflation there will be deflation, okay. So ultimately after high level of inflation, after high level of inflation, then there will be, you can say, deflation. So I will write in red. So you can say when something written in red means, or I specify, say that I am writing it in red, it means it's a danger, okay. So ultimately deflation is more dangerous than inflation, okay. Deflation is more dangerous than inflation, clear. So ultimately you have to remember that deflation is more dangerous than, you can say, inflation. So when I am using a word inflation means I am talking about moderate and high level of inflation, okay. So not talking about creeping inflation, okay. So this is what deflation is more dangerous than inflation, okay. Deflation is more dangerous than inflation. So can you tell me why? So there are two questions that UPSC can ask you. Number one, why deflation is dangerous, okay, and number two, why deflation comes after high inflation, okay. Why deflation comes after high inflation, okay. So first is why deflation is dangerous, okay. So first question is this, and why it comes after high inflation. No doubt I'll answer you, okay, but if you have an answer, okay, if you have answer, so you can also answer me, okay, you can also answer me, but I'll give you the answer, okay, when we'll talk about the topic of deflation, as I mentioned you in this topic itself. So when we talk about the topic of deflation, there we'll talk about this, okay, there we will talk about this thing, clear. So this is what you have to remember, okay. So this is about, you can say, types of inflation. So any doubt in types of inflation? So we have covered meaning of inflation, types of inflation. So any doubt? Please tell me. Please tell me. No doubt. Okay. Okay, if no doubt, please mention no doubt. Otherwise, if you have any doubt, I am giving you enough time to ask me the doubt. Okay. Now, moving further. Okay. So, moving further, we'll see the reasons for inflation. Okay. Okay. So, Karan has replied the answer for that. No doubt, Karan will talk about that. Okay. So, whatever. Now, one student is asking, sir, can you explain fiscal drag? Beta, fiscal drag is very easy. Okay. Fiscal drag is nothing but whenever your prices are rising in a limit, okay, so limit is this much, income of the people will increase. Okay, so you can understand in this way, like all the factories in an economy or in India, if they are increasing the prices in this limit, so no doubt with you can say the benefit of increased price that is in this limit, they will provide to their employees also by increasing the salary. Okay, and when this will increase, it means now these people will come under upper tax slab. So as I given you the example, like if 7 lakh is the tax slab, means people who are earning less than 7 lakh, they don't have to pay the tax. Okay, so suppose your income is 6 lakh. Now because of this inflation, your salary get also increased. Now your new income is, for example, 8 lakhs. Okay, or you can say more than 7 lakh. So automatically you come under the tax slab. Okay, so this is called fiscal drag. Clear?